Hi everybody. Welcome to another edition of In a Heartbeat. I'm your host, John Clor. We're coming to you from WMTV studio here in the Grosse Pointe War Memorial in Grosse Pointe Farms along the beautiful Lake St. Clair. And we're really glad to have you. I hope you're watching us on Channel 5 or Channel 915 here on Grosse Pointe Comcast Cable or Channel 99 on AT&T Uverse. If you've been watching the show a lot, you know that our other co-hosts, Liz and Dr. Dave and Joan, will all bring you lots of information about your health. And we talk to doctors and we talk to a lot of medical people about your health and your safety. But if you know me, you're going to know that I'm going to somehow turn it into something to do with cars. So today we're going to talk about the health and safety of your car as we're now into winter, and find out why it's very important to have your car have a great safety checkup and make sure that it's running right so it doesn't let you down or that you have a bad accident during the winter. Now, nobody's better to do that and help us figure this all out than my guest today, Chris Sawyer. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, John.
Chris, as you know, you've been on the show before. It's a really important topic today. I think what people need to do today is to get a pencil and paper handy to write down some of these things so that they can then, when the show's over,
make sure they got them.
Make sure they got everything done. Again,
it's easy to forget.
Chris, thevirtualdriver.com is where they can find you, but when I like to find you around here in the Grosse Pointe area, we always wind up talking about cars, and it is a health and safety issue.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, the health of your car does really a lot, in many ways, impact the way you're going to have a winter driving season. Either you're going to have flawless winter driving and your car's going to get you through, or you could have something not so much fun happen to you.
You have a lot of stress.
So today, let's start right at the top, folks. When you think about winter driving, what's the first thing you think about? When your car, you think, well, dead batteries. Dead batteries is the #1 problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's many other problems. But let's talk about batteries, Chris. I mean, you always get in the morning, it's zero. You hear about that, and you always wonder if you're going to go out and you turn the key, will it start? Why do we have this worry about our battery, and what's really the key about it?
It's really simple. We don't take care of them.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just put it right at the base. A battery has to go through hell, quite honestly. If you notice now in new cars, they're sitting in their own box.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is it's so darn hot under there. And so it's going through these thermal cycles that are destroying the battery over time. Mm-hmm. And every battery has a lifespan just like you and I do. Mm-hmm. Hopefully mine's a little longer than this.
Oh, mine's longer than a battery.
That's right. You can expect that about 3 years, you may start running into trouble. It's going to get a little sluggish. You may find it to get harder to start. 5 years, definitely should be replacing. But in between then, mm-hmm. you're going to notice that the battery posts are starting to get a little corroded, that you're getting this gunk on it that
right.
sort of looks like a giant version of that stuff you get in the corner of your eyes and over when you sleep.
That's right.
And you know what? You can take care of that real simply. You go down to your auto parts store, and you can either put the little felt pads underneath them,
yep.
or there's a spray that you can put on it, and you should really do it when the posts and the cables are clean.
Right.
So it's best to do it really right from the start, and you spray it right on the posts. I had this trouble with my riding lawnmower all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Batteries on those things are going like they're going faster than M&Ms at a frat party, and you'd find out that it would build this gunk up on it, and it would suck the life out of the battery.
Yeah.
I actually have gotten 2 years more life out of the battery just by spraying the stuff on it and keeping that gross stuff from growing on the
you know,
posts.
that's the #1 thing, folks. Let's face it. First thing you'd put on your list, #1, is check your battery. You don't need to go to the service station or garage to do that. Pop the hood, check the battery. If you have a little wire brush, you can buy that at the auto parts store for $1. And a little spray. There's little felt pads you can put on there with a small wrench. Clean it up. The better the connection, the longer the battery life will live. Mm-hmm. You don't have a degradation in the amount of current goes to your car. And as Chris says, if it gets to be 5, 6 years old, it's time to start shopping before the thing goes dead. If it's a 5 or 6 year old battery, have it tested each year, and once you start losing the battery holding a charge, change it out. I think that's the best advice, and it will save a call to AAA.
Oh, absolutely.
Now,
and it's going to save everybody who's out there with their tow truck having to take care of people who have dead batteries, they'll be so happy. They'll probably thank you for it.
Well, you know, Chris, a lot of people don't even know that you can check your battery when you
Yeah,
go.
they think that everything under the hood is now
It's just
off limits,
right?
and it's not.
So, what about the idea, you know, like when you're not feeling well, or before you go on a trip overseas, you get a checkup, you know, and just like your car, you can get a checkup, go in and ask for a complete safety, a winter checkup, and what other than, Chris, the number one thing we talked about before was an oil change. You get an oil change. We'll talk about that in a second. What are the kinds of things they look for in a winter checkup?
They're going to look at the state of your tires, whether you have enough tread on them, if they're up to pressure. They're going to look at your hoses. People keep forgetting that hoses have to be changed. Now, hoses are not like they used to be. They're not just rubber.
Right.
They're polymeric. They've got a lot of chemistry in them
Right.
that makes them last longer. But there's all that heat under the hood, and then you go through the winter months, and so it's going through this terrible thermal cycle. It gets
Right.
hot and it gets cold, and it's sort of like menopause. And you
getting
keep
hot
going
fast.
through that back and forth. The problem is that wears it down, and so you should always make sure that the hoses are good. A mechanic can do it. Your dealer can do it. It's very simple, and it will save you a load of trouble.
I don't know if you know this, but I do know that when
I know
see-
everything, but okay.
Well, they said that when I checked into how many winter breakdown items there were, the battery was a real big one, but a broken hose and or a thrown belt in the winter is a serious issue because people don't do that basic maintenance. So when you go in, they're going to get under hood, and they check those fluids. Why is an oil change before the winter season so important? Why not at this point? You think it's colder. People think of oil failure when it's really hot. Why is the winter an important part, Chris?
Well, the viscosity of oil at 70 degrees depends on what the weight of the oil is. If it's 5W30, what that means is that in cold weather, it's going to act like it has a viscosity of 5. Water at 70 degrees is 1. So that'll show you how well it pours.
Right.
Now, the 30 number means that it gets up to a viscosity of 30 as the temperature goes up, which you need to have the protection stay on the revolving parts in the engine.
But just so people know, 5W30 is the typical motor oil.
Exactly, absolutely
pretty
typical.
much
And
everybody.
not all of them are the same. If you have a car that does not run a synthetic, don't run a synthetic in it because it's so thin.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it's not protecting, but that
Right.
it will run past, because the tolerances on older engines are larger. On newer engines, they're so tight you have to run a synthetic.
Right.
And if it's a synthetic in your car, run the synthetic. Don't run anything else, and run, if you can, the same brand of oil
Right.
that's recommended by the OEM.
Right.
Because oils are different, and they can have different effects. They have different additive packages, and you want to stick with the one that the manufacturer has.
So just like in the summer when the heat is really building up in your car and you need a good motor oil to protect the engine, when it gets to be 20, 10, maybe 5 or even 5 below, that initial startup is where the damage.
It's where all the damage is done.
So your oil is sitting in the bottom of your engine. It's been overnight. You go out to go to work in the morning. You turn the key, and if it's old dirty oil, that initial few minutes of splashing the oil around is just going to put dirt into your engine and wear the.
Absolutely, and it's also going to have, because it has particulates in it,
Right.
it's going to make it harder for that oil to flow in the first place. And the first thing you want, that the minute you turn the key, that oil is starting to flow immediately to the parts that need it. And because the coating that you have on the parts overnight, the crank, everything, it stays there, but it only lasts so long.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're like some older cars, it doesn't immediately start in the winter. A couple of crank.
Yeah.
So all right. So there's two
Been
things,
there.
folks. You got your list going. You got the battery. You check the battery. You clean the cables. Make sure that's right. Get an oil change.
Make
and
sure
a
your
safety
antifreeze is
check.
okay.
Now that's the other thing. A lot of people. I had a discussion with a guy at work who said that antifreeze, the properties of antifrease never change, and that he doesn't believe in changing the antifreeze. I said, well, I always have mine. That's what he told me. He
Really?
said it's alcohol is alcohol. It's not going to go anywhere. And I said, really? And I said it breaks. Not only does the chemical makeup of that through the heat cycles
You bet.
break down, and it won't protect your engine block at the same levels year after year after year after year.
Not just that, but there are different materials that the blocks are made out of. Honda, for example, has a very specific alloy it uses on theirs, and you have to use a specific antifreeze
Really?
in a Honda motor, otherwise you will destroy that engine.
The warranty is
period.
void.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you continue to use it, you're going to get 10,000 miles, that's it, your engine's cooked.
Yeah, and people don't understand that even a small microscopic crack in your block, you may not notice it right away because you didn't have the antifreeze check. That in the summer could cause a engine failure.
Oh, absolutely major failure.
So
and you should change it. Follow the recommendations in the owner's manual. It's that book you hate to read because it's like that thick. It's like reading War and Peace.
Yeah.
But just go to the part you need and go,
Yeah,
I do have to change it. And they've got a lot of charts that tell you what you need to do. It's very simple.
Now those are the easy ones, folks. Your battery, oil change, obviously your antifreeze, make sure that's good, the fluids and stuff. But now we're going to do a little segment here called the junk in the trunk. We've got to, not you, no,
Oh, okay.
We've got to carry some stuff around with us in the wintertime. And the number one thing I see when I'm driving is people who run out of washer fluid and they're trying to reach out while they're driving and they're doing that, Chris.
Actually, I always thought that they're trying to see the state of Michigan in front of them, but it was only the lower peninsula. But
no,
yeah.
they're not doing that.
No.
The issue is, we know it's tough. Washer fluid, you can go through a gallon on 2 bad days.
Oh yeah, the spray flies everywhere in this time of the year,
And
especially the
sometimes-
salt.
Sometimes you get to work, you realize you're out of washer fluid. You're not going to have a chance maybe to get to a gas station or to the store. Is it a good idea really just to have one of those gallons rolling around in the trunk?
Absolutely.
And how do you keep, what is your trunk list if you had to make one for the winter?
Funny you should ask.
Oh, you've got one. Okay.
You definitely need, if you're going to travel anywhere, or especially if you're not a particularly good driver, always have a collapsible shovel with you so you can dig yourself out. You can get into a snowbank, and it's really funny. People will think, I'm in the snowbank, I can't get out. As long as you're not on a decline, you can probably get the car out if you can get the snow out from behind the tires.
Wow.
Traction control and stability control is so good now that as long as you got a good set of tires on it, you can get out of
That
it.
time you spend doing that may be
Absolutely.
way better than a 2-hour wait for
you
a
bet.
service call. Okay.
Winter gloves, and not just winter gloves, but I've found a really great thing recently. And you know the mechanics gloves you always see advertised,
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the NASCAR guys wearing?
Got a
There's
pair
a
of them.
winter version of those.
A winter one.
And they're as warm as can be.
Great.
And you can still move your fingers, so you can change the tire, you can do anything you need to.
Right.
They're not going to hold you up. Great thing to have, don't take much space. Hey, you can even put in the glove box.
That's what it's called.
Winter washer fluid, absolutely.
What do you mean winter washer
Winter
fluid?
washer fluid, one that says protects to 20 below.
Oh, okay.
And don't say, oh, well, I'm going to cut
stretch
it
it?
with water. I'm going to stretch it. No, never do it. Because not only is it good to 20 below, but when it's undiluted, it's much better at getting the bugs and everything else that ends up on your windshield off. So
Okay, good
keep
advice.
an undiluted gallon in the back. And companies are now not just doing the round jugs, they're doing square, little rectangular ones that will park in the corner of your trunk very easily and not take up much space. Kitty litter or sand, a small bag of that. Don't really need much. A small bag of kitty litter, it's just enough to get you some traction.
Right.
Clumping, not clumping, doesn't matter.
just
And
throw it
traction
down.
pads, you can get those at any parts store, or if you don't have one and you really get stuck, your floor mats work really well.
I've
Just
heard of
don't
people,
stand behind them because
they
they come
fall.
out at high speed.
Okay, now that's a great list, folks. If you've written all that down, make sure before you head out this winter that it's just in the trunk, and you may not, or may even once in a while go in there to use it, but when you have it, it makes a huge difference when something happens. So that's the important part, and we kind of touched on it earlier when you talk about your ability to see out the window with windshield washer fluid, and Chris, everybody talks about getting a good scraper. Why is it important for people to really take that? I mean, you've seen it, folks. If you're guilty of this, please stop doing this for your own health. Don't drive out there with only clearing your
Not
window.
just that, not just for your own health, but because I swear to God, I am going to invent a disruptor beam that will destroy those cars, just obliterate them.
They're driving with a foot of snow on the roof, only a patch cut out for the window. You don't clear the back window, you don't scrape.
Or you have cleared the back window and it's all kind of blown over and you can't see it anymore.
You don't clear your headlamps, your taillights aren't cleared.
And there's a new law in Michigan. You will get pulled over by the state police. They have been given authority if you do not clean your windows to pull you over. And it is a sizable fine.
Really?
Oh, yes.
All right, so it makes sense not just from a financial standpoint, but folks, if you can't
Safety
see out,
standpoint.
it's safety.
If you can't see, you're in trouble, and so are the rest of us.
Well, then the other idea is, maybe do they don't have a scraper, or is their scraper so old it only has those 2 little scratch marks? And
Let me put it to you this way. If the guy in the corner with the squeegee bottle can have a scraper, so can you.
all right, it's not.
They're not that expensive.
No, it's $2, $3, $4, folks. Get one with a brush on one side. Brush the snow from the roof. Get it down to the. Some people like to pull their windshield wipers up, and so they don't even
Yeah,
freeze
it's
to
a
the
great
window.
thing to do at night. If
night
you
before you get
can
back?
pull them up.
Yeah.
Not all cars will allow you to do it, but some will have a park positioned where you can pull it up.
Right, and then you can scrape the window, brush the
Absolutely.
snow off the hood and the trunk, make sure your headlamps and your tail lamps are clear, and then you go on your way. What
Yes.
is the real reason we see so much? Is it they don't have a scraper, or is it they're just...
I think they're not dressed for it, quite honestly, and it's cold outside, and you don't want to be out. I mean, I know when I come in from a trip, to a warmer climate, I'll land at Metro, and there's the car sitting with 6 inches
You
of
got no
snow on
gloves.
it.
You got
Yeah,
your
no
suit
gloves.
coat.
You know what I do? I always have a winter coat with me that I'll take with me to the airport. I'll have my gloves, my winter mechanic gloves, oddly enough, and I will have my boots with me, and I will change in the car. Yeah, they'll be freezing cold, but you warm them up in no time flat.
Yeah, folks, it's not worth it's really not worth not seeing
No.
properly. So scraper, get that in there, get that done. and
number
take
one
the time,
safety
right?
item.
All right, now another item that, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that your tires can make a huge difference on whether or
massive.
not you get in an accident. There's two things we want to talk about. One is the tire that you check, that your regular tire you have on the car. Now, a lot of people don't realize, you think you have to have a mechanic check your tire. All you need to do is, on a dry day, take no glove on, take your bare hand, and just put it over the top of your tire. Just touch the top of your tire. If you feel each tread like sort of cupping and pushing on your hand, or if you see bald spots in the center on the outside of your tire, you can visibly or just feel or see there may be problems with that tire or your suspension. But a lot of it, Chris, we talked about earlier, is compound. The type of tire you have can affect. And
Absolutely.
with the automakers today all wanting their cars to get 30 and 40 miles per gallon, what's happening to our
You're
tires?
getting high silica content in the tread. Now, that's not a bad thing, because snow tires are made with high silica content, but it's how it's positioned in the tread.
Okay.
The depth, what type of silica is being used, because a low rolling resistance tire will be often has a high silica content.
Okay.
And that's different than a winter tire, which is also high silica content, but is not oriented for low rolling resistance. Actually, you want a
porous,
little
softer.
more rolling resistance.
Yeah, you might lose the durability of that tire.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's only for the winter. But
Exactly. You're only using it for 4 months.
so it's way better to get something that's made for winter driving.
Yeah, a Bridgestone Blizzak, which is the one that everybody knows. I had a Mini Cooper. I had the run flat Goodyears on it, and I thought it was pretty good in the snow.
Yeah.
And they started to wear down, and I knew I was going to eventually get rid of the car, so I decided I'm going to get winter tires this one winter. So I put these tires on it, put Blizzaks on it. I was invincible.
Yeah, and
oh my God,
I
it was
only
amazing.
bring this up, folks, because my niece had just recently called me, and she said, Uncle John, my car slides around, and she bought a brand new car, front wheel drive, little compact. And I said to her, well, I know about that car and that those tires are made for mileage. Go out and buy a set of winter tires. And she said to me, well, wait a minute, that's kind of expensive. Shouldn't I just take a bag of sand and put it in the trunk? Well, it's a front wheel drive car. All the weight of the engine's already, it's not putting sand in the trunk.
You'll be
It
taking
really
weight
is.
off the drive wheels.
The only way, if you have a car that has a tendency to not drive well in the winter and has newer tires, you need a different brand tire. So
Absolutely.
the tire part.
You can get steel wheels,
Okay.
winter tires from a place like Tire Rack for under $400.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's well worth the money because it will save you from accidents.
You know-
Other people will be out of control, and you'll be sitting there going, "What's wrong with you?"
The other thing too, though, Chris, is inflation. Not just, okay, say you got the right kind of tire. When winter hits, or when you get that first cold morning, what happens to our tires? They look flat.
Well, for every 5-degree change, you're losing a couple of pounds of air. And I'll give you an example. I went off on a trip. We had been in the 50s. We had a snap in the 30s. I came home and I decided to check my tires because I said, this can't be right.
Yeah.
I lost 6 pounds of air. And you're losing mileage, you're losing maneuverability, you're losing everything. You're
Control.
losing grab on the road, everything. It's imperative. I know it's cold out there, but all you need to do is get yourself a nice tire gauge, not that expensive, and I prefer the dial indicator ones because they're much easier to use. They're much more accurate. You can see exactly what you've got. And do yourself a favor, go to Sears and get yourself one of those inflators that plugs into the wall. And you don't have to have the one that you carry around the car with you.
No.
Most people don't need it. And some cars have run flats and they've got one anyway. But get that, plug it into the wall, take that 30-foot length out to the car and pump those tires up. It takes, I am not kidding you, start to finish 10 minutes. That's it.
That's the best advice you can possibly get, folks. I know some of the reasons I hear people don't check their tires. First of all, it's dirty. Second of all, they're just going to get gas. And the gas stations will charge you 25, 50, 75 cents for a couple of seconds of air. So they don't have quarters on them. that buying a small little compressor for your garage, plugging it in, and checking your air regularly in the winter is just so smart, because it really will make a huge difference, not only on your safety, but on the ability for the tire to grab onto the road and
the life of the tire.
Life of the tire, really
Absolutely.
important. Now, speaking of this, another discussion people have is the car washes. People told me, I'm never going to get my car washed. He got his car washed at a reputable place, and he went and brought it home, parked the car. Next morning, he got up. All the doors are frozen, locks are frozen, couldn't get in the car. Even when with the power lock could unlock, he said when it wasn't a key, it was he couldn't, the seals had frozen.
Right, and
he
that
said,
does
never
happen.
wash your car in the winter. Chris, that can't be right with all the salt.
Let me tell you something. Somebody who worked at Z-Bart told me this 30 years ago. He said, one thing you never want to do is park your car in the garage during the winter, because it will raise the temperature above 28 degrees, and at 28 degrees, the salt on your car is reactivated and it starts to rust.
Right.
Why would you want the salt on your car in the first place?
I hate it.
Okay? Now, as far as the seals icing up, that's easily taken care of. The seals ice up partly because they're dirty, and the dirt holds onto the moisture, which keeps it in contact with the seal freezes, you can't get the door open.
Right.
Now, it's very simple. You can get a vinyl and rubber cleaner, which is probably the best thing to do.
Can't be that expensive, a couple bucks?
Yeah, well, 10 for a good one.
Okay.
But it's well worth it, because you only have to do it a couple of times a year, and you clean the seals all the way around the door. The one on the car itself, and also the one on the door, because everything's double and triple sealed these days.
Right.
If you do that, there's nothing for that to contact. Another thing you can do is spray it with silicone. Just put it on a cloth and wipe it all the way around. Another thing you can do, which I don't like to do on seals as much, but in a pinch it works really well, is WD-40.
Good old WD.
And WD-40 works in this case because the WD stands for water displacement.
People didn't know that.
The 40 stands for how they went through 39 before they got the 40th one that
40th
worked.
formula. I'll be
The
done.
nice thing about WD-40 is you can use it for that. You can also take that little tube and spray it in the door locks,
Right.
and that will prevent water from getting in there and
freezing the lock.
And in a pinch, if on the outside, and this is why it's always good to have 2 jugs of windshield washer fluid, one in the car and one in your garage. If on the outside you get into a case where we've had an ice storm, and it happens,
Yes.
and you can't even get the door handles to open.
Right.
That windshield washer fluid, you pour it
just
over
pouring
it,
it on there.
and it's gone, and it
deicer.
doesn't harm the paint.
Beautiful. Good. Another piece of good advice, folks. Make sure you write that one down, because it is important. Getting that salt off your car, people, some of them are just vain and we want our cars to look great, but getting that salt off is not a bad idea. You want to get all that off, and don't fear with a couple of small maintenance tips. Again, it's maintenance, Chris.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
A couple of small tips, you get it done.
And there's a lot you have to, it's a busy world now, and we have a lot to take care of. But this is 5 and 10 minutes that just find the time to do it on a weekend, and it will take care of you for the rest of the winter.
Folks, if you've spent 5 or 10 minutes doing that, would you rather not do it, and then for some reason you can't leave work, and you've
And
got
you're
a half
stuck
an
for
hour, you're stuck
hours.
for hours. And it's not only that, when you impact, say your car breaks down on the freeway, it's not just you that's going to be late, and it's the safety people that have to go and get you, and the tow truck, and the police. It's millions of commuters, thousands of people are going to be pushing to one side and late for being home because you didn't properly maintain.
And you
your
don't
car.
want to be that person
You
they're
got,
talking
you
about.
got to do it. Okay, Chris, we really want to get to a couple more things. One
Sure.
is I just saw something in the news that they're thinking of. We already have 10% of alcohol in our ethanol in our
Yeah.
in our gasoline. We're trying to push it to 15% now, and a lot of people say that something to do with ethanol puts more moisture in your fuel, and then you get fuel line freeze up, and it's just not good for your
There's
car.
bigger problems than that, and the automakers don't like this because they have protected all the seals in the vehicle, especially the fuel line seals,
Gaskets?
against the 10% ethanol.
Okay.
Because it is an alcohol, and it also attracts water.
Right.
And if you don't have the proper seals, it will balloon the seals that you have in the car, and you won't get any fluid through them, and your car stops.
Yeah.
Now, you go to 15%, you have to have a different seal. None of the cars on the road are protected, except for those that can run E85,
Right.
are protected for 15% alcohol. Now, E85 is exactly what 15% ethanol is.
Right.
So now we're all going to be running E85 cars? I'm sorry, somebody in Washington had better get their screws tightened down.
Well, they're trying to pick a winner and loser here, and I know
And
that
it's the wrong
it's going
thing
to
to do.
affect us as we drive.
And it also, ethanol is a great thing. If we could have a whole show on ethanol, but ethanol does not have as much energy in it as fuel as gasoline does. So
Wicks moisture in it, too?
It wicks moisture. You cannot flow it through a pipeline that can oil, because by the end of the pipeline, if you went from one end of the country to another, it would be 50% ethanol, 50% water, and you would start it with 100% ethanol.
Yeah.
That's how much water it
So
attracts.
folks, no matter what gas station you go to, is another one for your list, whether it says, it contains 10% ethanol, or even if it's 15%, the idea is make sure you fill up your tank as often as you can. Driving it to the bottom of the tank where there may be...
Especially in the winter, you don't want to go below half a tank if you can.
Yeah.
Because any water in the tank, you don't want to bring that up and have it freeze in the fuel line.
Yeah, that's
You can blow it out in the summer and the winter. It will go through and you'll be able to burn it off, but not this time
as
of year.
painful as it might be, we should
Yes,
really fill up our
exactly.
car. Now, the last thing is I saw another little item on the news, because maybe you can help me on this one. There was the National Petroleum Institute went to one of those big truck stops, Lowe's or Love's, or one of those big...
One of those L ones.
And they said they went in there and they bought a quart of oil for their car, and it said, they put it in their car, and it was an off-brand. It was made in China. And they tested 5 or 6 of these Chinese off-brand motor oils, and they said they don't meet minimum U.S. specification for use in our passenger cars.
No, absolutely not.
And even though they say for use, it was an imported oil, they said that much of it was recycled. It didn't meet minimum standards. You could void your warranty
Absolutely.
by buying an off-brand motor oil.
Don't be cheap when it comes to the fluids for your vehicle. It would be like saying, you know what, I need to have, a transfusion of blood, but I think I'm going to use Hershey's chocolate syrup instead. It's cheaper.
Why do people try to...
Because they're being cheap, and it's going to cost them in the end, and it's going to cost them so much in the end, it's going to make their head spin. Yeah. Thousands of dollars.
Not worth it.
Not worth it at all.
So,
buy a brand.
Buy a brand. So folks, really, let's really take that one to heart. I know.
And stick with a brand.
When you go to the grocery store, maybe you can buy the off-brand mac and cheese.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to
fine.
motor oil, and it's
the kids
something
are
out
eating
of
it, who
China
cares?
that you'd never heard before, and it's only 90 cents instead of $2.
There's a reason.
Yeah. What are you saving, Chris?
No, you're
Not saving anything. So, folks, I hope that you've taken that one to heart. Buy brand-named items that you know, because they do meet manufacturer standard. And Chris's long-standing advice: do check your owner's manual, even though it might kill you every once in a while. Some small maintenance items: tires, hoses, battery, brakes. Throw the other things in your trunk if you feel that you've got a 3-year-old battery.
And you know what? It's just like Cliff Notes, an owner's manual, because when you find all the things that you need, they're all in the back.
Well, folks, we're already out of time. I really hate to break now because we're having so much fun with this. It's really important. I hope that little list helps you out. Do a little shopping. Put it on your list. Chris, again, no better guy to come talk about cars than Chris Sawyer. You can catch Chris on thevirtualdriver.com. When you look at all the blogs on the internet, there's one that comes from the Voice of Experience. Check him out there online, Chris. I appreciate that. And folks, I hope that you now can help the health and safety of yourself and the health of your car by not getting stuck in a rut. So thanks for joining us. Remember, knowledge is power. Again, my name is John Clor. Until next time, thanks for watching.